it's Jessica Lewis. It's time to wine with Jessica Lewis, and I'm here today with Katherine Jones in the United Kingdom. And so we are going to talk a little bit about the broadcast, and then we'll be talking about Katherine, and I'll be chatting with her about her business. So Time to Wine is a live broadcast featuring experts in wine, social media, leadership, and marketing. And it's featured on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, every other Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The live stream broadcast is featured on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And it's every other Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm also working on Instagram Live and Clubhouse. So Katherine is from Liverpool, United Kingdom, and she's the director of two sister companies, Think Wine Group and We Are Social Nation. The latter is a celebrity influencer marketing agency. So tell us what you're doing right now, Katherine.
Hey.
What time is it in the United Kingdom?
It is 5:20 p.m.
5:20 p.m. Okay. And tell us a little bit, how big is your city? It's a huge international city, right?
I mean, it's a big city. It's not as big as London.
Okay.
Nowhere near as big as London, but we have a lot going on. It is big. It's bustling. And especially now that lockdown's lifted, it's very, very busy.
We are so speaking of that, so what's happening currently with lockdown in Liverpool?
All our restrictions have now been lifted from the 19th of July. So we had to, prior to that, there was no nightclubs open. You had to wear a mask everywhere. There was lots of restrictions in place. And then on the 19th of July, they lifted all the restrictions. So there's actually no restrictions at all right now. What about you?
We're in the same situation. Our restrictions lifted. Most of us have the vaccine. They were waiting for a certain amount of the population to have the vaccine. So I think we have about 70% of the population has both vaccines. And on June 30th, we all took off our mask and all restrictions were lifted too. And everyone, there's a lot of people still wearing masks, and everyone's kind of, because we went back and forth for a year and a half with can we really, every time we went forward, we'd go backwards with an extreme lockdown. So everybody's still a little nervous, I think. And there's a lot of problems here there are supply chain issues. So stores, et cetera, aren't receiving product. And then we have a lot of issues with, I don't quite understand all this, but I was at a restaurant one night and there were 25 people waiting to get in line, and they put a sign on the door and said, we don't have enough employees. We can't serve you. So there's really intense, there's a lot of the restaurants are hiring again, and they don't have enough employees, and it's happening everywhere where a lot of people are saying we don't have enough employees. We don't have people to work. So it's kind of been an interesting aftermath phenomenon.
Well, we've got that. I'm surprised to hear you have it so much, but because obviously England has left the EU now because of Brexit, a lot of our skilled hospitality workers have gone back to Europe. The Italians and the Spanish and a lot of Europeans have gone back because of Brexit. And so we've lost so many skilled workers in the hospitality industry, which is such a shame because we're suffering the same problems. There's not enough hospitality staff to run venues.
Yeah, we're having the same kind of problem here. And then there's, if you try to buy Nike tennis shoes or Asics or anything like that, they're having trouble with the importing of the branded products and things.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you talk a little bit about your work background? I know you have a really interesting work background, and hear a little more about you.
Yeah, sure. So, going way back, my degree is in international business management. So that's what I studied at university. I always knew that I wanted to experience, business in different countries and experience different cultures. So I did a lot of traveling when I was younger, followed by working in loads of different countries. But predominantly, I've always worked in sales. So whatever job I've had, it's always had the backbone of a sales role. And how I kind of got into what I'm doing now was I was always working in sales, and then I got asked to go and work for a celebrity agency. But again, it was a sales role within a celebrity agency, but I just ended up learning the ins and outs of the complete business. So I very much learned how to run a celebrity agency. I then branched off and set up my own influencer marketing agency. So we don't do absolutely everything for the influencers, because at my previous agency, we did everything. So, we would book their travel, we would book their accommodation, we would do everything for them. They'd phone us just to book them a taxi. But now we just look after their social media. So we don't do everything for them. We purely run their social media platforms. So I've got an influencer marketing agency that does that. And then that led me into what I do now, which is Think Wine. And that was purely because I was very, very passionate about wine, and I wanted to start an e-commerce brand. I wanted to start an e-commerce brand because I was making so many other e-commerce brands so much money through influencer marketing that I wanted a piece of the pie. I wanted to also make a lot of money through influencer marketing. So I wanted to set up a brand. I wasn't sure what. I knew I wanted to be passionate about it, and I'm very, very passionate about wine. So that's kind of a very short version of my kind of work background and how I got to where I am now.
So are you with your Think Wine group, are you part of the branded product, or do you have other people that are representing the brand?
Oh, I have lots of influencers representing the brand.
Okay.
All different shapes and sizes of influencers represent the brand. I mean, I'm definitely a part of the brand, but I'm very big on LinkedIn. I often post a lot on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. While as on my Instagram page, you would never see me, if that makes sense. I've got kind of, on Instagram, you never see me. It's all about the product, the visuals. You never see me. On LinkedIn, it's all about me, my personality, what I want for the brand, my values, my morals. And you will get to know me a lot on LinkedIn, but on my Instagram, you wouldn't see me at all. So I guess I've got two sides to it.
Yes. Well, I tend to do backwards. I tend to do post everyone but me.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Now, speaking of LinkedIn, I know you've met your partner on LinkedIn, so that's kind of an interesting story too. So talk about how you met your partner, because I've read that story on LinkedIn.
Okay. So it was actually just prior to lockdown, and I had just moved into new offices, which is such a shame because obviously I'd taken on this contract to pay for these offices for us to then all go and work from home. But I had a vision in my mind for my office. I wanted neon lights. You can see mine here.
Yeah.
And so that sign is obviously made with to suit our branding. And I had posted on LinkedIn just saying, I really want a neon sign made. I want a door sign for my door. Can anyone recommend it? A sign maker or a sign fitter? And a couple of people had tagged Leo, which is now my partner. And I was just like, oh, hey. So I just popped up to him. Hello, you've been tagged in a couple of my posts. Will you come in and quote me for how much a sign would cost? And then he came into the office, but it was funny because it was right as lockdown was beginning. I literally had like my pajamas on. Because I wasn't seeing anyone, and I was just there all day, and it was freezing cold as well at the time. So I was like so snuggly in my pajamas. I had like my hair on my head here dangling off, and he came in, and I was like, oh, hello.
There's a person. We can talk to someone. Yeah, that was kind of a scary little point right there too.
Yeah, it's a human. Hi. And I was like, oh, he's all right. Anyway, after he'd left, he messaged me and he was like, we should go for a walk sometime, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, it's lockdown. It's boring. Why not? So yeah, we went for a socially distanced walk, and then the rest is history. But I got my sign for free.
Partner up with people that know how to assist you with your business. Rule number one. I love that story. I've met everyone on social media, and I've actually had people fly here and meet me in person that have flown from New York or have flown from different. I've met a lot of the people that I've met on social media in person, so it's really interesting. So,
Yeah.
okay, so we are Social Nation. You talked a little bit about you have an influencer agency. I know you have a cosmetic, you work with cosmetic lines, you travel to China, celebrity endorsements, those kinds of things. You want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure, yeah. So, after I graduated university, I moved to Shanghai. And I did that because, throughout university, I was studying international business, and I could see that China was the most up and coming country. It had this economy that was exploding. And I was like, I need to go and see what this is about. So I went and I spent a year and a half in China, and it was amazing. It was a very, very difficult experience because I did not speak Chinese. And you think, oh, it's such a big multicultural city, everyone will speak English, but they absolutely don't. And it's very much like, you're in China, you speak our language, and who can blame them? But obviously I didn't speak the language, so I struggled a lot. But once I got used to it and I made friends, and I absolutely loved it. I had the time of my life, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about, factories and buying things and selling things. And I did a marketing internship there with an American company, actually. So I learned about a lot about like the American way of doing business as well. And so anyway, because of that, when I returned to the UK and I got employed at a celebrity agency, as our influencers were growing on social media and we were making a lot of money for different brands, we had a conversation and said, we need to set up our own brands. We can't, we shouldn't just keep making money through this way for everyone else. Why don't we set up our own brand and make money ourselves? So because I had experience in China, I went back to China. I worked with factories. We were developing products. We went on, multiple journeys to find, different cosmetics ranges to bring out in the UK that wasn't there yet. So we were really successful with that. And that's not my current business. That was the business that I worked at before I set up my agency. But that was what gave me all the experience in setting up an e-commerce store. Because, from start to finish, I worked on that brand, on the branding, on the product, on how to get it in the country, the logistics, the selling, the marketing. I did it all. So that was where I learned like the skills to be able to go and go it alone, I guess. So yeah, that was kind of what happened.
That sounds, that's to me, I'm also into international business. And so it sounds incredibly interesting to me. First of all, if you couldn't speak Chinese, you had to build relationships with these people that were willing to trust you. And what would you say? I wanted to bring this up. You just mentioned there's a big difference between American companies and companies in England. So what would you say the big difference is you'd see? I know there's a difference in marketing between the United States and the EU, but what did you see as a big difference between working for American companies versus companies in England or Liverpool?
So, I mean, American companies are second to none on customer service, I believe. Like, don't get me wrong, like you will go to some places and of course the service will be bad because they're very underpaid, undervalued, or, whatever. But in the majority of chain businesses, the customer service is spot on. Customer service is key. And I don't believe that is necessarily like that in the UK. I see that customer service in the US is a lot better. I also think that in America, they're definitely a lot tougher in making you toughen up, I guess. Like my first proper job was actually in America. So when I was at university, I went and did a year and a half working for the Marriott hotels in Kentucky. And, I was terrified. Like when I first got there, because I was only 19 and I first arrived and I didn't know a single person. And I was like, what? I've got to stand on reception and talk to people. What if they don't understand me? What if they don't like me? All the worries that you have when you're young. And, it was literally that tough love. My manager was like, get out there now and do it. And you've got a target to hit. So while you're at it, upsell 10 rooms, go. And it was kind of like tough love that you don't
Mhm.
really get in the UK. Like in the UK, it's kind of like, oh, it's okay. I'll just do it then, don't worry about it. Or, they might say, oh, you've got a sales target of 3 rooms, but if you don't hit it, don't worry, it's not a problem. Whereas in the US, it's like, you don't hit 10, you can get sacked.
Yeah.
So there's like that tough love element, but actually it really, really worked. And it really, really paid off for me because also there's like another level of confidence within the US. So, like, when someone is really, really good at their job in the US, they are not afraid to say it. It's like, I'm really good at my job. I am the best seller. Without doubt, the best seller. I do this better than anyone else. If someone was the best seller in the UK, they'd be like, oh, well, I sold the most this week, but I'm not always the best. It's all like, no one's like that confident, that level of just like, I'm the best, so what? And that kind of got instilled in me very young because I was trained in the US. So when I came back to England and everyone was all very, sheepish about their ability, like, oh, I'm okay, but I'm not that good. I was like, well, I'm great, so bye. And then next thing, I was outselling everyone by a million miles. And it's like that mentality of just confidence that I don't believe that I would have had I not have spent that time in the US.
It's funny how different, a lot of things you can achieve with your mind and your
Mhm.
thinking and your changing your thinking and just right what you were
Yeah.
saying. And I started in sales and I was always a top salesperson too. And
Mhm.
one thing I knew, one was I had the confidence. The second thing I knew, it was a numbers game. So
Yeah.
someone might contact 3 people and I might contact 50, and then I would get 12 sales where they had none or
Yeah.
one, and they
Yeah.
would wonder what I was doing, and I was actually
Just
contacting people and talking, and
exactly. Yeah,
so I
yeah.
did the same thing.
Yeah.
So
English people are
oh, go
very
ahead. Go ahead.
self-deprecating, which is, it's not everyone, but a lot of English people are self-deprecating. They will not just be like, I'm great.
Mhm. And you have to do that and
Yeah,
move forward.
you do.
Okay, so what do you think okay, you have an interesting story too about how you founded Think Wine Group. And so tell us that story.
So you you want kind of like the whole story. So basically, I have always been prone to gaining weight. I actually gained a hell of a lot of weight when I was in the US, funnily enough. But I've always been prone to get to weight gain. So when I was working with influencers, we'd go to a lot of events. We'd be invited to a lot of restaurant openings or launches of businesses. And on arrival, you would always get either a glass of prosecco or a glass of champagne. And I wasn't eating that much. And I kept thinking, why am I gaining weight? Because I'm hardly eating. I'm always on a diet. And then I thought, oh my God, of course, it's alcohol calories. Like, why do I not think of that? Because by the time you've had a couple of glasses of wine, it's so many calories full of sugar. So I started, adjusting my intake of wine, and then I quickly lost some weight. And I was like, what if you could create a wine that was better for you? So it was reduced in calories, it was reduced in sugar, it was potentially vegan, because I knew that a lot of wines were not vegan, potentially organic. I was like, imagine you could create a really nice wine that it was very health conscious also. And that's how the idea came about. And then what actually happened was I went to a weight loss boot camp, and we were just kind of sat over dinner talking about like, oh, wouldn't you love a glass of wine now? And I was like, well, listen to my idea. My idea is actually to create, some bubbly that people can have at events and celebratory occasions and gifts and stuff like that. I was like, but it would have like way less sugar, way less calories, but still taste amazing. And everyone was like, oh my God, that's an amazing idea. Imagine, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, it was just an idea that ran away with me. If I didn't make it happen, I don't think I'd be able to sleep at night. And one of the ladies was actually an investment banker. And she said, like, have you got money? And I was like, well, yeah, I've got a bit. I do run my own business and it's doing quite well. I said, but I don't think I've got enough money to develop a wine that's completely mine. I was like, why? And she's like, well, I'd be happy to invest. I'd be happy to at least give you a startup loan. So we ended up kind of working together to set up the business. And we were back and forth to Italy many, many times, just trying to find the correct winery that had all of our morals, all of our values, but also was happy to work with us, because our wine is not a white labeled product. So a lot of wineries just sell their own wine and different brands put their own label on it and call it whatever they want. Whereas ours isn't like that. It's made specifically for us. So no one else, you can't get our wine from anyone else with another label on at all. So that's pretty special about ours. But not every winery in Italy is happy to work on that basis, because they just want to give you their wine and stick a label on it, because that's not much work for them. But you know, I was against that. So we were back and forth to Italy probably 20 times before we found our winery. And when I tasted it, I just knew it was the one. And they're family owned and just such an amazing winery with amazing morals. So yeah, that's how it began.
That's interesting. And when you do partnering with an investor, did you feel like you would lose some of what you were wanting to do, or you were having to give up some of your philosophies and beliefs, etc., for the money, or did it all work together?
Not at all, no. Because I have had trouble in the past with business partners. That's another story, another long story in my life. But it made me very, very cautious that I would only go into business with someone that genuinely thinks like I do, has a logical mind, has, you know, good morals. And I only wanted to go into business with someone like that. So we actually spent near 2 years getting to know each other before there was any kind of, you know, money exchanges or anything like that. So I was fully aware of what I was getting myself into. And no, we've never not gotten along. We've never, and to be honest, like, the decisions are always key decisions. As much as she will get involved within the brand, like, the key decisions remain mine throughout. They always have.
Okay, that's really nice. That's a lovely story. So, okay, now we're going to talk a little bit. We've had COVID, which I don't think any of us were expecting, an unprecedented global pandemic. I don't think that was on my list of, hey. So, so with that in mind, what would you say the highs and lows of entrepreneurial business would be? What would you say some of your highs are and some of your lows?
Right. Well, I can tell you my lows. Staffing. Getting good staff is a nightmare. People who think like you, people who work as hard as you. You know, no one can ever work as hard on your business as you do. It's your business. It's your love. It's your baby. No one will ever work to the level that you will work, but you would at least like a close second. And it's so difficult to find that. And there's so many challenges that staff bring, you know, such as sickness. I've actually had a staff member steal from us. We've had, like, people who suffer huge anxiety throughout COVID, so they basically can't work. You know, there's a lot of things that staff bring, but at the same time, there's a lot of good things staff bring, and there's nothing I love more than my team. And when you've got a great team around you, it feels amazing. But when you've got a team member letting you down, it feels like the worst thing in the world, because it really upsets you. And I think if there's anything I need to do, it's grow thicker skin when it comes to staff, because I've got really thick skin when it comes to, you know, negotiating on business and people who are not kind of close to my heart. But as soon as it involves my staff, who I love, care about, trust so much, as soon as anything happens with them, it kills me. And I need to really, like, grow a tougher skin, I think. I feel like I'm getting stronger with it, but I've had ups and downs throughout the pandemic with staff. So that, to me, for sure, is a struggle.
Has it How was it working at home? Was that better, or did that cause a big disruption working at home versus being at work?
It
Well,
was
first of all, you rented out office space, and then suddenly we were all had to go home, right?
exactly, yeah. So
Okay.
I just rented, on a 5-year lease, a large space because we'd grown so much. We needed a large space to have the wine. And obviously to sit, because at the time I had 5 staff, so we needed places for everyone to be, and we needed a place for the wine. So I literally signed a 5-year lease, and then, oh hello, it's COVID. So I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Everyone's got to go home and work from home. That's the government, rules. So I actually continued within the office most of the time, but my staff worked from home. And yeah, it's difficult because it's very motivational when you're all together. I feel like everyone works kind of to the best of their ability when they're together, certainly on my team. And actually, all of my team kept asking, can we come back in? Yeah, can we come back in? We're so bored. We really want to come back in. And it was hard because stuff that we'd shared between 5 people, I was now doing completely alone. So I was packing the cases, the boxes to be shipped on my own. I was collecting the wine from the warehouse on my own. I was running the website on my own. I was running the socials on my own. So I literally was doing 5 people's job alone. So it was tough, but it was good. We survived, and that was the main thing. All I wanted to do was make sure I didn't have to get rid of any of my staff during that period, and I didn't have to. So that was a win for me.
And that's wonderful. And then I was doing the same thing. I've been working, I was working about 50 or 60 or 70 hours a week on my own business during COVID at the same time, too.
Yeah.
So, okay, so highs and lows for entrepreneurs. We all have those. Okay, how do you use social media or influencer marketing to market your business?
So because I know influence as well, because obviously that has been my background for nearly 8 years now. I choose an influencer based on who their demographic of follower is. So generally, I'm trying to target women aged 25 to 55 who like quality over quantity. So they don't want the cheapest product, they want the higher quality product. And they're health conscious, they're interested in preserving the planet, they're interested in preserving their waistline, and they want to eat less sugar, and they want a top quality product. So they're the type of people I'm trying to target. So when I'm looking at which influencer I'm going to use, I always look to check that that is their demographic of follower. And then if it is, I will work with them. And the way it works is you pay the influencer the agreed amount. They create content. So I could provide a brief, or they could make their own content organically. Sometimes I'll say, you run off and do whatever you please. Or I will say, here's a brief, please follow it. It depends on the influencer. And then we get the content, we approve the content goes live on an approved time and day, because you don't want them to post at 4 a.m. on a Friday night. No one's going to see that. So you've got to make sure that it goes live at an appropriate time. And usually from someone's analytics, you can see exactly when is the best time to post. So that's what I do. I choose a correct influencer, I pay them, get the content, but then I use that content. I don't just kind of go, oh, thank you, bye. I use that content on my Facebook ads and my Instagram ads and my LinkedIn posts. I use it everywhere to make sure I'm getting the most out of the content that I've paid for. And generally, you will see sales straight away. So if, for example, on a normal Thursday night, I might only get 50 people visit my website on a normal Thursday. But if I use an influencer, I could have 1,000 people visit my website. So it's very, very clear that all that additional traffic has come from the influencer's page. And then that will more often than not convert to sales. So yeah, that's what we do, and we do it regularly.
And so, okay, so I wanted to ask you a little bit. Both of you and I are big international travelers.
Yeah.
So I've been to your area too. So let's talk a little bit about culture shock between a variety of different countries. I have some very funny culture shock stories. What are some of your culture shock stories?
Oh God. I mean, China is the biggest one. Of course, like when I went to Kentucky, I was young and things were obviously different. And I think because in England, you can drink at the age of 18, and in America, obviously, it's 21. So, I got to America like, what do you mean I can't drink? I've been drinking for the past 2 years. How are you going to tell me that, I'm supposed to not be able to not drink wine now? And I was like, excuse me. So that was a bit of a culture shock. But at the end of the day, we both speak English. And actually, in Kentucky, they're all quite sarcastic. And I'm also very sarcastic. So it wasn't, it was nothing too extreme in terms of a culture shock. But then you go to China, and that is a huge culture shock in every way. The food is a shock because what you think is Chinese food, because of our westernized Chinese food that we eat,
Mhm.
is just not Chinese food. So you're like, okay, well, this isn't what I was expecting. I was expecting, just sweet and sour chicken, something like a bit normal. And then, oh no, I get like chicken feet. Um, so the food is a shock.
This Oh, yeah. I my husband, I think he was in Korea, and so he had some Korean businessmen taking him out for dinner,
Yeah,
and they were bringing things that were still alive out to eat, and he was like, "Oh,
plenty of that.
oh, goodness."
Yes. So food is definitely a big one for me because I genuinely thought, oh, I'm going to love all the food in China. And then I was like, this is not Chinese food. So that, and then, even it's like the driving, you've never seen driving like it. It's like no one can drive. It's like the roads are jam packed. Everyone's walking in front of cars. Everyone's beeping each other nonstop. It's like, in New York where it's like beep, 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 but times that by 1,000, and that's China. So the roads are a culture shock, and then the work is a culture shock. The fact that you expect, I think, as Westerners, you just expect that everyone's going to speak English. And I know it's such a bad thing to do because why should you expect that you should go to another country and they should speak English? But, English is the international language of the world, and we've got used to people speaking it. And so when I arrived in China and everyone's like, I don't speak English. If you even want to dare communicate with me, you better learn some Chinese. Then again, that's another culture shock. So multiple culture shocks in China, but also it meant that like when I got home to England, everything was easy because everything was such a struggle in China. Ordering food, ordering a taxi, making friends, getting from A to B, getting a new job, everything was a struggle. So when I got back to England, it felt like everything was so easy in life. And like people would moan about little tiny nothing situations. And I'd be like, oh, that's not a situation. Like, if you were
New
in China, you
perspective
were
on your own culture and what's easy and what's not easy.
yeah,
My
exactly.
One of mine is I'm I'm I need to check on this, but I'm going to make this signal, which in Italy, this is okay in the United States.
Yeah,
Okay. So in Italy, if they're asking me, do I like the food? I'd flash them, yeah, the okay sign.
yeah.
Brazil, this is like something akin to a middle finger in the United States.
Oh
So
no.
when I was in South America, my husband's mother kept asking me if I liked the food, and I would make this signal, which is very offensive. And my husband would go, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that to my mother?" It's like, okay, I didn't know. So when I go to, yeah, I think some of my, I've got many culture shock stories. But I've been to Brazil 14 times.
I was just gonna say 14. Oh my god, I've been once and I loved it. I
Where
went.
did
I
you
went.
go?
I went to Copacabana and Isla Grande. Have you ever been there?
I've been to Copacabana
Yeah. Oh my god,
in Ipanema.
it's beautiful.
It is
So you're
beautiful.
very lucky to go there 14 times. Wow. Did
Yes.
you meet him there?
Sure. I had a roommate, me, and I went to see her, and then I met him in Brazil, and then we've been married for about 15 years. So,
Wow.
gosh darn it, I have to go to Brazil for family vacations.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's something I have to do. Okay. So, all right. So, COVID silver linings, or okay, we had this big global pandemic. It was quite a shock in the beginning. I'd love to hear some of your insight and some of the things that you think were silver linings.
Yeah. So we only launched Think just before COVID. So we were struggling to get into bars and restaurants because we were a brand new brand. We had no online presence. No one knew who we were. And trying to convince venues that they should, remove their current Prosecco and replace it with ours wasn't easy because we had no brand. So I was doing it, and don't get me wrong, we did get a couple of venues, but when COVID hit, we had no choice because the venues were closed, so we couldn't sell to venues anymore. We had no choice to put all of our time, resources into selling online. So we made our website so much better, so much more efficient. Then we did so much influencer marketing, and we got lucky because people were at home and they were really bored. They were happy to post for us in exchange for wine. So we didn't even need to pay them. The girls that we were getting to promote us, we were sending them wine and they were promoting us for free, which normally they charge us, £500 or £1,000. So we were getting really lucky. So lots of people were promoting us. Then all of a sudden, we just seen this huge spike in sales because everyone was searching on Google for low sugar stuff, low sugar, low calories, reduced calories, and everyone was drinking a hell of a lot more. I don't know if that happened in the United States, but everyone was drinking a lot more wine during lockdown because it was like, oh, well, I don't have to go in the office tomorrow. So, I can have a few wines tonight. It's fine. And we had such good weather in the UK, which is very, very rare. Last year, we had the nicest summer ever. And so people were drinking more in the garden, and because they couldn't go out, they were having barbecues and they wanted bubbles, and the wine was making everyone feel good. So our sales just skyrocketed online. Our followers flew up. So we went from like 1,000 followers to like 15,000 followers. And we just started really, really building a brand throughout the pandemic. And then in the past couple of months, as we've come out of lockdown, when I go and approach bars and restaurants now, they go, oh my God, yeah, you're from Think. I know Think. I've seen Think. Oh yeah, you're the girl off LinkedIn. Oh yeah, you're the one who posts about this. Or, oh, I've seen your Instagram, or I seen, this celebrity or that celebrity posting about you. And they're much more interested in speaking to me because they recognize my brand now. While as prior to lockdown, no one recognized my brand. So actually, it was a really beneficial thing. And because we were selling more online than wholesale, there's bigger margins in that. So there's much bigger margins to sell online than it is to sell wholesale. You barely make any money selling wholesale, but you have to do it to build a brand. So that's kind of what happened. So for us, actually, in hindsight, lockdown was the best thing that could have happened to me as a brand.
It's really interesting. The same sort of thing. I had a lot of highs during this. Well, I think one of the things I saw that was a silver lining is there was a lot of people. It was almost like a spiritual shift in many ways. There were a lot of families in the United States that they had all the whole family at home, and they were doing home projects. So they
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
they were posting pictures of the entire family working in the yard, the entire family revitalizing the house or doing construction in the house. So there was a lot of that going on. There was a lot of I just saw a lot of people at home doing puzzles together with their family or coming up with different ideas. So I thought there were some really nice things that came out of it, and I think some of the negatives that came out of it. And then people were also working at home, and I found I get so much more work done at home than I've ever done in an office. I can crank through to-do list without anyone interrupting me, and so I have a lot of work done. So I think there's a lot of hybrid positions in the United States, or people found. I don't live in a big city where there's heavy transportation to work, but other people were posting. They were saving 4 hours a day They were,
Wow.
by not traveling 2 hours to work and back, and a lot of people didn't wanna go back to an office. They felt like they could get on Zoom and talk and do
Yeah.
other things. I think we've had a big shift in how we work with how we went to work in the United States is also in a big shift in how we feel about our family as opposed to working, and all kinds of things have happened. It's been kind of interesting.
Oh, I love
So
that.
yeah, I think there's some really I think there's some really nice things that happen. So what are some of your tips for success? So for successful entrepreneurs moving forward, what would you say makes a person successful?
I think it's probably resilience. Like, as an entrepreneur, like, I have been knocked down 1,000 times, like, whether that be from staff stealing money, from someone, that has said no to you. So, like, you get a potential amazing big business opportunity and they say no. Like, sometimes that can floor a person and they don't get back up again. Or, if someone very close to them steals or does something. I've had so many kinds of letdowns, knockdowns, but I always get straight back up again because I'm very, very resilient. And I believe that resilience is the key to success, because things happen when you're a business owner, and especially if you go and, you're trying to go big, things happen, people get jealous. I've had another company that I had never heard of in my life send me a legal letter saying, like, you've copied our brand.
Oh
Uh,
gosh, can't
send
imagine.
send me all your stock now. That's literally what it said. Oh, okay. Wait there. I'll pack up my stock and I will send it to you. Brand that I've never heard of in my life. I will send you my stock. And you're just like, what? That's insane. But of course, like, again, I laugh about that, and then, like, I send them a legal letter back. It costs me a few £100, which is annoying because it's money to
Yeah.
train. So it's like, but people get jealous, and you have to just kind of keep bashing it off. And every time you get knocked down, you just got to get back up, and you've just got to be resilient and be like, I'm stronger than this. I'm bigger than this. Be driven. If you are not driven, then there is just no way. Because how can you, if you're not, you need to be driven to be able to make sure you get stuff done. Otherwise, you work for yourself. So it's like, well, actually, that can wait till tomorrow. That can wait till later. Okay, but then you won't be getting paid for another week or another month. So then that's going to hit your bottom line. That's going to hit how many staff you can hire. Take risks. Risks are so important. I know so many people that are brilliant at the job and brilliant at, what they do on a sole trader basis, but they will not take a risk in their life. So getting a member of staff, that to them is like, oh, what if I couldn't pay them? What if something happens? I'd rather just have, like, this very small business, but I know that I'm completely in control of it. I know that, but you can never scale that. So you're never going to be hugely successful if you won't take a risk. So for me, to be successful, take risks, be resilient, and be very, very driven and ambitious so that you can motivate yourself.
I agree with you. I think risk taking is I love that because I think it's very important to really go forward and take a risk.
Mhm.
And I'm very driven as well. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. Now, in closing, so we're going to talk a little bit about, so tell me how we can find you on social media. So if someone wants to contact you or wants to order your wine or wants to know more about you, how do they find you?
At Think Wine Group, we're basically called that on all the platforms. So
I'll
at,
post it right here too. Here
yeah.
we go.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So
Yeah.
at Think Wine Group, you'll find us on most platforms as that, or I'm on LinkedIn as Katherine Jones, Katherine with a K. So I would love to connect on LinkedIn as well, and that way we can follow each other's journeys.
Yes, and I want to hear more about you too. So, okay, and just real quickly in closing, the Time to Wine broadcast is featured on a variety of social media channels, and I feature experts in wine, social media, leadership, and marketing. And also, I have a live broadcast, and I'm also working on, there's only one of me, but I'm working on Instagram broadcast as well as Clubhouse because a lot of people have asked me. This is a very international broadcast for people all over the world. So feel free to contact us. And anyway, so thank you so much, Katherine from Liverpool. Between do we have 9-hour time difference?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
9-hour time difference. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Kisses to you.
Bye.
And we'll do our little closing here and we're ready to go.